Hi, everyone. It is Wednesday, May 4th. Welcome back to Transforming Problems with Venerable Amy Miller. Hi, Venerable Amy. Good evening. Thank you for being here, of course.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Chen Ling Center, and everyone who has been supporting this center, making this possible. Thank you so much for hosting. I just want to ask any questions from last week, and also we had some exercises again to reflect on. We're going to review these verses 4 and 5 of the 8 verses and talking about, we were looking at emptiness last week, so applying these, how these 8 verses, and especially 4 and 5, how that would work like that. I talked about doing the meditation, transforming problems into happiness, but this time it was focused on emptiness. So if any of you got to that or have any questions about that, anything like that. And I don't know if you could spend the week with emptiness. We talked a little bit last week, but what you can do in your daily life, which is in between formal meditation, in your daily life, is you can see everything as a product. You can see everything as a product. What I mean by that is you're questioning, you're poking at stuff. So, you might even be at a meeting and you're listening to people, you're driving, but you understand that the highway you drive on that seems incredibly concrete and solid is made up of components. It's a product of other things, right? Whether it's asphalt and whether it's all the materials that go into asphalt, and whether you want to break it down molecularly, right? So everything suddenly becomes part of all these other things. And in order for it to be this roadway, what it is, it's a composite, right? In order for that roadway to exist, it has to come from other things. Because if we have a notion, because it's so solid and it holds all these cars, we think of a solidly, inherently existent roadway. That's how it appears to us. And that's how our self appears to us. The I, meaning the letter I, meaning ourself, appears solidly existing, permanently, unchanging for all time. Dominant, concretely, these are all words, intrinsically existing. These are all synonyms. And so what happens is I get engaged in this very dominant sense of myself. Anything that threatens that is a problem and makes me suffer. So we're in this dance all the time with this seeming appearance of reality, including ourselves in the middle of it all, okay? And then here's the other component is what actually exists, how things really exist, by depending on other things, by being a product of other things, okay? Because let me give you a concept of inherent nature. What we mean by, it's very hard for us to understand, first of all, inherent nature. Inherently existent things, in a sense, are frozen in time and space. Inherent means they never change. They're always that thing, and they exist independent of any previous causes and conditions that brought them into being. They're independent of their parts, and they're independent of your mental concept about them. And that we impute that onto most everything, especially ourselves. So again, frozen in time and space. Please think about this for next week. Think about this for next week is what doesn't exist like that? Or I would ask you, what does exist inherently? So again, we're imputing that on things. We're imputing that, but nothing can exist that way. And I'll just give you an example of, here's a cup. I think we acknowledge it's a cup, meaning we have a conventional agreement in our part of the world with our language. You see something that holds, you can't really see the liquid, but there's water in this, okay? The cup has to have a bottom to hold liquid, generally holds liquid. I know cups can hold other things like flowers, that's fine. But you get the idea that there's some vessel that holds a liquid, and then often we use it as a function to drink. If I touch it, it feels pretty solid to people. We get that notion. So if this cup existed inherently, which is the way my mind and what it imputes on it, labels on it, you know, I might even have a concept is I misunderstand the way the cup really exists. Please think about this closely. I misunderstand the way the cup really exists. I impute a heavier, solid, independent existence on cup. I do that based on my ignorance, due to my ignorance, fundamental ignorance that happens to be in my mind from a previous moment of that. That's all, a previous experience of ignorance, misknowing reality. Okay? So then I basically impute that on the cup. Okay. Mistaken notion on this cup. Okay. Now here's the real problem of what happens is as I'm thinking about the wrong way the cup exists and placing this heavy notion on the cup, an inherently existing cup that's appearing to my consciousness due to ignorance. Okay, the real problem comes when I then suddenly see this cup in its mistaken experience and then further impute my cup. That's where all your suffering starts. And now I have a heavier notion, and it can be my kid, my car, my dog. You know, very suddenly, it's not only the mistaken notion of that being, okay, but now ownership, mine. You know, you interfere with that at all in any harmful way, suffering comes to you for your mind. Okay, but that's not, so what you want to do is you want to poke at these things. So I like to say sometimes the cup I use rather than my cup, the car I drive, the cabin where I stay. So it lessens this over importance of my involvement, my thing, possessiveness, okay? And then imputing this really heavy notion on it. And then part of the suffering comes from, I don't want the thing to change. What doesn't change? Come on. Everything changes. And Tibetan Buddhism, when you get more technical, has a few ideas, a few things that don't change, but right now I'm just focused on most everything changes. So you buy that shiny new car and you get it from the dealer and you drive it out of the lot and it's all very exciting. How does that car feel 10 years later? It's a little bit different. You know, I know when people talk about, and it's funny when you hear somebody talk about and refer to somebody's phone as being from, you know, well, their phone, it's the 2018 version. Like it's some kind of ancient prehistoric thing, a phone from 2018. Wow, really? You have the iPhone 6S? Does it still work? Right, but remember when you got the 6S? I'm just, you know, joking around with some, remember when you got that new phone and it was new? It was the newest thing. You got the latest one. You decided, I'm going to get the latest one. It was all very exciting. A few years later, it's obsolete. Doesn't even work. Can't even download apps to it. Operating system is too old, like that. So everything changes, especially ourselves. What we want to do is change our mind into something glorious. That's possible. Everything else, you know, we want to take care of things as well as we can, but you let go of they're not going to change. You know, that just creates more suffering. So as you go through reality in your daily lives, can you explore that a little bit when you notice the cloud comes across your horizon and suddenly your mind's not happy? Is there any way for you to experience? So get a sense, what is going on? What's happening for your mind? See, and if you can't do it in the moment, that's why I have a meditation space. I come back and go, what happened in that meeting this afternoon? Everything was really good this morning. Then I had a meeting, and then what? What tends to happen are two things, okay? Self-cherishing and self-grasping. This is what we're talking about with the 8 verses and how to transform those problems into habits. Self-grasping, self-happiness. Sorry, self-cherishing. So first of all, they interfered with something I'm doing, and now I'm not happy. I wanted this. This needed to happen. I'm not thinking about the other person at all. It's all about me and my agenda and what I wanted to have happen. Okay. based on the false understanding I have of myself. So the self-grasping comes from this false sense, my misunderstanding about how my I exists. And then based on that self-grasping, I grasp onto an I think is inherently existent. And then as I grasp onto that, everything needs to foster that agenda, self-cherishing. That's how those self-grasping and self-cherishing fits together. Okay. So I'd really love you to work with this week. And you can, I work with it all the time. This is for the rest of your life. These are the two things we're trying to dismantle in a major, major way that will make you happier. So let's take a moment and go just to set our minds in the right space and look at our refuge and bodhicitta prayer in the beginning for motivation. Thank you, Gina. And again, this is a standard way we come into the teachings thinking about our motivation, that it's in this tradition, it's about all living beings, about benefiting all living beings. If you'd like to just close your eyes for a moment. Just allow some deeper respiration. And as you exhale, just release tension from the day and perhaps scatteredness or distraction. And as you inhale, this notion, how wonderful it would be if we were unlimited in being able to help all living beings. So thinking of this prayer that brings us along the three scopes of the Lam Rim. For the lower, medium, and higher capable being, their motivation to avoid worse, more torturous experiences, to avoid the suffering also of what we're experiencing now in this life, and to help us develop that totality heart, in a sense, fully open heart mind experience, embracing beings with loving kindness, compassion, wisdom, reaching that place of full Buddhahood, enlightenment, like that, because then we can benefit all living beings. But that real purpose and the reason we're here this evening is for that, to benefit all living beings, to reach that place, to do that. So with that in mind, let's read this prayer twice in the English. Once we'll chant in the phonetics. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. O Sangye Chodan Soki Chonam La Janchu Bardu Dagni Kyab Suchi Dagi Chin Yingi Peso Namki Drola Pencher Sangye Druparjo. Thank you. So just a brief review, some things from last week. Let me find my, hang on one second. Just going to review with you the verses. And this is from a meditation we're going to do a little later in this session. I'm going to share my screen for a moment so you can read with me. If I can be made a co-host. Thank you so much, Gina. Or Cindy, thank you so much. This is the ever-flowing nectar of bodhicitta. And this is one of the meditations with this module that I love. And so as you see on the screen, on the left side is this, it's a line drawing of a 1,000-arm Chen. This is an emanation of the Buddha. And here in the picture, it says at the bottom, 1,000-arm Avalokiteshvara. Avalokiteshvara is the name of the Buddha of infinite wisdom in Sanskrit. Avalokiteshvara. Chenresig is Tibetan. And this Buddha, and again, I'm sorry, it's just a line drawing, but we do have other beautiful color photos of this Buddha. Let's see, I think I can turn my camera. Well, when I stop sharing, I'll show you another one. It was actually given to me by His Holiness. This other one I have hanging on the wall, I'll show you in a moment. His Holiness is said to be a manifestation of this Buddha. 1,000 arms to reach 1,000 different realms for sentient beings to help. Each arm, so the hands have an eye in the center, again, to see all the different beings that need help. The 11 heads are all facing different directions. This is also the manifestation. This is the Buddha that we involve in what's called a Nungne practice. A Nungne is a special, like 2+ day retreat. So it's perfect for working people who have 2 days off. It's 2 full days, and then it's kind of just one session on the 3rd day. So you can do these Nungnes and go to work the next day, and you can do them over a weekend. Nungne means abiding in the fast. So you're fasting part of this retreat. You're doing prostrations to this emanation of the Buddha, this 1,000-armed Chenresig. And it describes through the practice in the Nungne, you describe the Buddha, what they look like. And it's a beautiful, beautiful practice that is like taking a scrub brush to your chakras. It's a really deep purification. So this is one of the meditations, this ever-flowing nectar of bodhicitta. And I wanted to mention again, with bodhicitta, we're dealing with diffusing the self-cherishing mind. And here it says the Mahayana thought training, which is what we're often talking about in the 8 verses, annihilating the demon of the self-cherishing mind. So it's interesting how they think about it sometimes in Tibetan system, this demon of the self-cherishing mind. So in Master Atisha's mind training slogans, which are also related to this path of bodhicitta, Master Atisha mind training slogans, one of the most famous ones, again, as I mentioned before, is place all the blame on one. The one only thing to blame is your self-cherishing, your selfishness, your self-absorption. So we're going to do this in a moment, but I just want to read through the 8 verses in here. You can join me just as a refresher. Determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I hold them most dear at all times. This is to help us develop the quality of equanimity. Number 2, when in the company of others, I shall hold myself, consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depths of my heart, hold others dear and supreme. So this helps us develop the quality of humility, cutting pride. Number 3, Vigilant the moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. So this is about us developing more mindfulness as we work to counter delusion in the mind. Number 4, whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent negative actions and suffering, I shall hold such rare ones dear as if I found a precious treasure. So this is about cherishing others, really developing, especially cherishing those most difficult, seeing the value. These people need help the most. They're kind of precious friends to us because they really help transform our minds. Number 5, when out of envy, others mistreat me with abuse, insults, or the like, I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others. So this brings in some notion of karma, thinking about the quality of protecting our mind as we consider others, as we think about this huge space of mind to offer the victory. Okay, really developing a quality of that helps diffuse hostility on the planet, disharmony. Number 6, when someone whom I have benefited and whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. So this is where we're going to start. We finished everything up until number 6. This is about developing patience. Let me just show you the Chen on the wall here. Okay. This is a color version of the Buddha of infinite compassion, Chen Reizig. And there's a lot of other of his friends in that entourage, his party, like that. And what was sweet about this particular image is many years ago, before I was a nun, I had a boyfriend I was living with at Vajrapani, Brian, and we had a trip to Dharamsala, India, where His Holiness the Dalai Lama lives. And so when we were there, there was a teacher previous to that visit that had stayed, that we had hosted it at Vajrapani, a wonderful teacher I was very close with, called Gen Yeshe Topten. And he was a great yogi, great meditator who lived up on the mountain for a long time. But in the winters, as he got old, he moved down to the temple to live down there where it was warmer and he could get food more easily and things like that, because it does snow and sometimes heavily in Dharamsala. So I was really close with Gen Yeshe Topten, as was my boyfriend. And he was at Vajrapani one season visiting us, and we had these small wall propane heaters. And he saw one, and we had removed one from the wall that we were going to move and put in somebody else's cabin. And he saw it in the meantime and thought that we were throwing it out and really wanted this, and said, I want to bring it to His Holiness. But it was used. So we said, no, we'll buy you a new one if you're going to give it to His Holiness. And he wanted one for his cabin, and we bought him one, and he went back to India with them. They didn't have them in India at the time. And he went back to India, and they offered one to His Holiness. And it was now they have, proper, better heating, and they have better propane heaters there. But at the time it was a big revolutionary thing in Dharamsala. And he offered it to His Holiness, and the attendants were trying to hook it up. And it was really the latest, greatest heater. And everybody was very excited, but the attendants didn't have the right components. So we met with them. We went down to Lower Dharamsala. We got it all sorted for them and got it hooked up. We didn't see His Holiness in the time at that point. We did have a separate meeting with His Holiness once, at that time, but not around that. And then what happened is His Holiness apparently wanted to thank us for getting this heater installed, which was really all about my boyfriend did it. I had nothing to do with it. And other than helping to transport one of the heaters over there. And so we never expected His Holiness to meet with us, to take time out of his busy schedule to thank us. So the attendants asked us to come, and they came out, and they're just so lovely. And they said, we're really sorry that His Holiness can't come out himself. I was like, please, he doesn't need to come out to thank us. And they said, but he wants you to have this. So he gave us each these posters, and they're just paper and stuff, but he had signed them, and it was really very touching for us. So I've always hung on to that, and finally got it back on the wall here. So it's very sweet. So, so again, Buddha of infinite compassion, giving me this picture of the Buddha of infinite compassion works for me. Okay. So let's talk about verse 6. Let's see, what did I do with my, hang on one second. Here we go. And let me just repeat verse 6. When someone whom I have benefited and in whom I have great hope gives me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. And just to go back 1 second to the Mahayana mind training we were just talking about, bodhicitta. Again, 2 components with bodhicitta is you're trying to get enlightened to benefit all living beings. So there's 2, get enlightened to benefit all living beings. Some people say, oh, I really want to benefit all living beings. Okay, you can't do it perfectly until you're enlightened. So those are 2 motivating factors. And the other thing we're trying to do is obviously diffuse and reduce our self-cherishing and move away from the self-cherishing to move into a space of cherishing others. So you really want to get that mindset working by understanding, as I've mentioned before, the components of why is it so beneficial to cherish others? Why is it harmful to cherish myself? Please just look at your own mind. Notice when you're unhappy. It's pretty simple right there. What is going on for you? Usually I'm sitting in my mind thinking about myself and what I need, what I want, who has interfered with that, like that. Okay. Verse 6. When someone whom I have benefited and whom I have great hope gives me terrible harm, shall regard that person as my holy guru. Let's look at the word guru for a moment. This can be a scary word in our culture. We think of cults. We think of somebody taking over our mind, somebody controlling our mind, like somebody not letting us see family. That's not the essence of guru. It's a Sanskrit word for teacher, okay? But really a very heightened teacher, a spiritual teacher. Sometimes in Tibetan, we translate as virtuous friend, virtuous friend. Think about the friends we have. Wonderful, fantastic. We have some delightful friends. But with the guru, it's somebody that has a heightened consciousness, fully expanded heart-mind experience. Okay, and you've been around people like that, where there's people that seem to know more than you on an intuitive level. They seem to have a little bit more grace with everyone they meet, seem to be able to dismantle some negative situations they get into in a very harmonious way. And we certainly know these beings around the planet, whether we want to label them Gandhi or Mother Teresa, or it could be a taxi driver in Manhattan that, I mean, they could be in any guise at all. And fortunately, I feel in my tradition, some of my teachers, male, female, I certainly feel like I've been in contact with people like that, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche. That. So, and one beautiful thing that just happened 2 days ago, Rinpoche's sister, who lives at Laudo, which is this remote retreat center near Mount Everest, where I've done a lot of retreats. Her 80th birthday was a couple of days ago. Now, I'm not really clear how they determined that May 3rd was her birthday. I think they looked at the Tibetan calendar as well, which is a lunar calendar. And I know she's always told me she was born in the spring. So, so anyway, a couple days ago, so a friend is up there right now from England, is visiting. She sent me a message that we were trying to do some face calls with Anila. Anila means nun, dear nun. And I often call her that. And so I was able to do a face call with her, and through somebody's phone. It was fantastic. We just had a lot of laughs, and it was just great. And she doesn't care anything about her birthday. Sherpas don't really, they haven't in the past so much celebrated their birthdays, especially the mountain people up there. It's not so much been a concept. It's more of a Western thing. And so she speaks what I call broken English. And she said to me on the phone, she says, "Me birthday, me no knowing." Gina has met her. Gina has been up to Laudo on one of my pilgrimages. She says, "Me no knowing, me no care," right? But what was really sweet is they made her a cake. It was quite a celebration with some gifts, and she got to see some old friends like myself, to have some face calls and talk about some old times and wonderful memories. And then the best thing was later in the day, Lama Zopa Rinpoche had a 1-hour call with her, a face call, and talked to her at length. And there's a photo, and I actually posted something on my Instagram post somebody sent me of a video of Rinpoche having this call with her. And you can see her on the little device in front of him, her face. And what happened is somebody held the phone up for her. She was in the kitchen. They held the phone in front of her, and she sits the whole time like this when she talks to him, with her hands in front, very respectful. It's so sweet. And it was just darling. So it was really wonderful. And I was very touched by that. If you're interested as well, the Laudo pilgrimage, we had to postpone several years to do it the next one because of COVID, but it is on the books now. In 1 year from now, it will be late April, the middle of May, 2023. There are places open on it. And if you're interested, please contact me. I will put in the chat how you can find more information on it, is via my website. And I'll just list it here right now. So this is something you're going to need about 3 weeks for. You travel to Nepal, and then we'll have some time there exploring a day in Kathmandu. We fly up to the mountains. It'll be the flight of your lifetime. You can ask Gina about it. And we trek, we walk slowly several days from there to Laudo. It's 14,000 feet high, 14,000 feet up. We do a 3-day silent retreat there, mostly silent. And we then explore a little bit of the area, and then we walk down together. Well, we would like to walk down together to the plane and fly down. Last time, Gina and I and a whole bunch of us had to helicopter down because the flights weren't going. So it's always an adventure. And you can talk with Gina if you want more info about what was it really like. It was fantastic for me. And another person that just has joined us, Peggy, has also been to Laudo. So you can ask her about Laudo. Maybe, Peggy, it's time for you to come back on the pilgrimage.
Maybe so.
Okay. And I'm looking at David and Lisa right now, who are sitting like this. And I think you guys should both be coming on the pilgrimage. And so anyway, Jeff also, who's here from Chicago, his wife is from Nepal. So we're all connected that way. Great. Okay, thanks very much. Let's go back to verse 6. So again, this is a situation where you have put in a lot of effort over time to help somebody through a difficult period in life, okay? And you meet them again, or after all of your effort, okay, and they are rude to you, non-appreciative, dismissive, like that. And this happens for us. So again, first check with yourself. If you're giving someone advice or somebody asks you for help, this is not you foisting advice on someone, but somebody's asked you for help. Somebody needs your help. They've been through a very bad period and they leaned on you and they relied on you, right? And you really did all you could for them. What's your motivation for doing it, for one? Something to think about, okay? Like, am I doing it because I want to get something back? Okay, so it can be very painful. Okay, but this is about practicing patience. So we had another verse about a person being somebody really special to me, like a wish-fulfilling jewel. This is all about transforming, and this is all about what transforming the problems is about. because we're not viewing people like that. I get into helping somebody, and then later there might be a little thing in my mind about what are they going to do for me? You know, I'm expecting them to help me. That's not what transforming problems is about for your mind. Okay. Can I continue with the bodhicitta heart to keep expanding my heart-mind experience? According to Tibetan Buddhism, the most subtle experience of your mind is actually located at the core of your heart, not in the organ, the heart, but in a subtle energy system, a chakra, an energy center. And we have them at our crown, at our throat, at our heart, navel, sexual organs. We have little energy centers all over our body. Those are the main ones. Okay. So in the center, that center part of the heart chakra, okay, is the most subtle mind, experience of your mind, not physical, but it rests there on the most subtle wind in a unique way that it attaches there. I want to keep that open and spacious as much as possible. Why? It keeps me happy. Okay. Every time we constrict those subtle winds and things like that, and they get knots around the different channels and things, constricts the flow of the spacious, the way the wind should really move in your system. Okay. So this is all training in, first of all, relax, how to expand the mind-heart experience. Okay. So patience is something that we need. And here's our trajectory when we're practicing what's called the highest scope of the Lam Rim. Okay. So we have a lower scope motivation, meaning a lower capable being practices and gets on the path because they're terrified of what will come next, that it'll be more suffering. So the topics that are included in that part of the philosophy that I probably mentioned before include the advantages of being a human, the situations quickly passing away, death and impermanence. When I do pass away, things could be much worse. I could end up in incredibly torturous situations. So let me take refuge as a protection from more suffering. And let me figure out, who do I really take refuge in? And what are the qualities of what we would take refuge in? Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Is that really going to help me? You know, what else do I take refuge in? Is that a great support for more suffering? Okay. And then I want to learn about karma to learn how to conduct myself. So positive, virtuous activities. That's all lower capable beings topics that they meditate through, understand, read, study, like that. And then you come into medium capable being motivation. Build on the first motivation. I'm terrified things are going to be worse. But right now, you know, sometimes life sucks. Sometimes it's not great. There's still suffering. You know, I'm still going to die, and I might die with a lot of pain and a lot of fear, like that. So what I'd like to do is I'd really love to reach nirvana, bring about an end, permanent end of all my suffering. Great. So a lot of these practices engage in the different types of suffering, and that there's an end to this suffering. Then you get into build on those two motivations, you get into the higher capable beings motivation. And this involves a lot of bodhicitta and emptiness. Okay? So what we really want to do with bodhicitta is learn the disadvantages of self-cherishing, as I mentioned, learn about the advantages of cherishing others. And then you have methods, two main methods. Again, I'm just reviewing, okay? One prevalent method, 7-point cause and effect method to develop bodhicitta. Second method, equalizing and exchanging self with others method. More secret, because we're dealing with Tonglen meditation. Taking someone's suffering, having the wish to take someone's suffering and offer them all your happiness. That. So a little bit radical, because people normally would say, I don't want to take somebody's suffering. I don't want to give away my happiness, like that. But the third component in developing this bodhicitta as well, and also both of these methods are based on this idea of equanimity we've talked about before. But the last part in this higher scope motivation is we're practicing something called the 6 perfections, 6 perfect behaviors. Okay, it starts with generosity is number 1, because from generosity, which is not just about giving money, could be giving time, giving protection, teaching dharma, giving things like that, is from generosity, all the other realizations flow. And your dharma path really opens up from having a generous attitude. a generous heart. Okay. Then we come into ethical conduct is number 2, second perfection. Ethical basis for things, meaning I'm trying not to harm others. I'm trying to be compassionate in my speech. I'm trying not to steal. I'm trying not to kill insects, not to lie to people. You get the idea of what's kind of a balanced, ethical way to be in the world. I think most of us get that. The third perfection is patience. And that's what this verse is about. So we have then patience, then we have joyous effort, which is enthusiastic perseverance, not just to do anything, but to practice virtue. Basically, to have a spiritual path that you're practicing enthusiastically. That's the fourth perfection. The fifth one is concentration. So developing meditative stabilization. Okay. And the reason I want to develop meditative stabilization, the fifth perfection, is to develop the sixth perfection, wisdom. Okay. I need the meditative stabilization to focus my mind in meditation on emptiness effectively, okay, in order to penetrate through that insight to have a direct perception of emptiness. So they're all built one on top of the other, those 6 perfections, and that's part of that higher scope motivation. So let's look at patience. When we begin to practice patience, okay, you want to understand, what can I meditate on, and it depends. And here's the thing, it depends on an enemy. So patience is not necessarily waiting in the doctor's room with your People magazine, right? And you can feel like you're very patient there. And sometimes we have to wait an hour, but it's actually about facing up to adversity. So when you're undergoing hardship, how's your mind? When you're undergoing hardship, how is your mind? We can wait in a doctor's office, not a big deal. We're comfortable, things. But here comes the difficult person, once again, which is a lot of what these verses are about. And here comes now somebody that I gave so much to, right? I sacrificed so much for them. I, helped them move out of their house and cleaned up all their stuff. I helped them get into a rehab program. I helped them get into the rehab program 6 times. I was there for them again. I gave them money for the program. I did all this. I was the one they lived with when they came out. I was the one when they relapsed, what was happening. I was years, you go through this kind of thing, and then they throw it all back in their face with no appreciation. That's adversity. That's adversity. How's your mind with that? Are you okay with that? Okay. So in order to really perfect patience, which you need to get enlightened because it's one of the 6 perfections, okay, you need an enemy. You need an enemy. So, and the thing is, you go, some of you will say, I don't really have any enemies. That's great, but you have some difficult people. Again, let's go back to the earlier verse about them. They are as precious as a wish-fulfilling gem. So the more you can start to see people like this, it definitely starts transforming your reality, where you start welcoming them because you see the benefit for your mind, okay? But it's not just about your mind and the benefit for your mind. It's my mind transforming into happiness, okay? And it makes me happy, which is great, but I'm going to use it on my path to get enlightened, to benefit all living beings. See, we keep taking it to that other level, that it's not just about me being happy. So here, if we're able to bear the type of harm, that type of harm this person is dishing me, okay? Then there is nothing to prevent the Guru Buddha's manifestation as somebody who causes harm, okay? Because this is seeing them as a precious guru, okay? Okay, there's nothing that can prevent us. We might as well see them as this could be a message from my teacher, right? This could be a Buddha manifesting as somebody to cause me harm so I can complete the practice of patience. Because I don't know their mind, I can't really see if they're an enlightened being or not. But why not think of them as somebody teaching you a magnificent lesson? You don't need to see them as the Buddha if you don't believe in that. But what about somebody giving you this magic message from the universe? Only in this way. With our friends, it's easy. I don't have to practice patience. It's easy with them. But if I really want to see this person as my guru, as a teacher, right? They're showing me my mind. Okay? So the Dalai Lama says that having an enemy is not an obstacle to practicing the path. In fact, it's something essential for the practice of the path. So, and one example I've noticed is I've noticed Lama Zopa Rinpoche, when somebody disagrees, when somebody criticizes his view, okay, I've noticed his responses at times like that. An example given, if somebody does criticize Rinpoche, I have seen a few things where Rinpoche is teaching and somebody is debating. You know, Rinpoche takes a lot of care with that person, you know, as if he's practicing patience. They become extra special to him, it seems. Okay, but in a very genuine way. This isn't a glib way of like, oh, there's my precious teacher. You know, it's not like that. This is a genuine way. You know, if somebody finds fault with you, and I've been in a teaching where I've seen Rinpoche really taking extra care with somebody who doesn't understand. Because they don't understand, they start criticizing. You know, even some with anger, I've noticed, with what feels to me like a lot of ego. And Rinpoche very patiently takes the time, gives them attention. And some people go, why would you give them attention? That's, you know, but it diffuses the whole situation. And is it about us personally? We get so invested personally, right? So here it goes on to say, when I have great hope. So the great hope is referring to an expectation of friendship and appreciation from that person. Okay. So there's interest from my side to see that they're doing well. There's interest from my side to know that what I did benefited them. Okay, so I've got some expectations in there, right? You know, I've offered them this thing. I've given them a room in my house. I paid for that dinner. I've done these things. Then I layer an expectation in as I like some thanks. They didn't even thank me. They didn't even appreciate. Okay, so again, that's my problem. That's not out there. And I know when people have signed up for pilgrimages, have joined me on pilgrimage, there's an orientation the first evening that I go over with people, and it even says it, there's a packing list that's already attached to the itinerary. You can go on my website and look at the itinerary. The itinerary basically is going to be the same, only the dates will change, because that's an itinerary, I believe, from maybe 2020. Okay, so we're going to update that with actual dates, but the itinerary is basically the same. Where we stay, what we do. And you'll see a packing list at the end of the itinerary. And one of the last things on the packing list says, you know, what to bring with you. And I think it has something like at the very end, a positive attitude and a sense of humor. Okay. And one of the things not to bring with you are expectations, to leave at home. Okay, because it's the mother of disappointment, I find. So again, if I'm showering this person with help and support, just notice, are you giving with a hand out? Like, because I'm expecting something back. So that's another setup for me to be unhappy. Okay. And this is something to notice about your own mind, is also to think about, is somebody that I've greatly benefited, okay? Think about the person is doing you a service as well by accepting your generosity and your help. There's some people that won't accept that from you. So think about, that's pretty kind of them to be able to take my help as well. You know, now they might be really relying on you and be desperate, but still there's a service you can think. Again, it's transforming your mind. Okay, now let's think about our mind for a moment. I don't know how many of you would say you have somewhat inflexible minds. Okay, so sometimes I like to think, and they mention an analogy in this class of, you know, when you're working with leather, when a shoemaker is creating shoes and working with the leather, okay, they have to soften the leather. They're treating the leather so that it's softer and more supple. And that's what we do with our minds. You know, softening the leather like that takes a lot of work, massaging, you know, making it so, you know, so again, you're not with a crowbar suddenly going to adopt these 8 verses. You have to kind of try them on. As I said to you, take one a week, especially as you leave here, take one a week, put the 8 of them on your refrigerator. You know, we've got like a couple here. You can play with it with each other. Let's do this first this week. So you're slowly getting the mind to adapt. Some weeks won't go as well. Some people are really going to push your buttons. Yeah. So you keep familiarizing yourself with the reasons for particular positive ways of thinking and remembering the great benefits that come from those ways. So much benefit comes from following the advice of thought transformation, but it takes time like that. And there's a famous story of Lama Atisha. Lama Atisha, who had a cook, and we actually had a Lama in modern days. One of my teachers who was at the University of Wisconsin for many years, he passed away, but you know, he had a very difficult attendant that nobody liked. And Lama Atisha had a cook that everybody hated. Super, super difficult cook. And many people were saying to Lama Atisha, you need to get rid of this cook. Why do you have this cook? He's rude. He's critical to everyone, even to Lama Atisha himself. Okay. And Atisha refused to get rid of him. You know, and he basically said, he goes, how else can I practice patience? I need him to practice patience, to develop patience. So can you look at somebody in your life right now in that situation where all you've been viewing them is as adverse? I just wish this guy would get fired from my office. You know, I wish they weren't working here. I wish this person wasn't in my life. Can you just turn the attitude of this person is really helping me? In a sense, polishing the jewel of your own mind to become enlightened, for the jewel to be smooth and to reflect all the different facets of enlightenment. Okay, it takes some scrubbing sometimes of that jewel to polish it. And it's important to realize that while we're practicing patience, what is our enemy doing? What's the other person doing? Okay, they're often getting angry. They're often creating negative karma for themselves. Okay, so we're definitely responsible for what's happening to them. We want to care about them, because think about them. They're just going to create more and more problems for themselves. Okay? Any questions so far? Or about any of this so far that I was mentioning this verse? Makes sense? Possible to practice?
Yeah, I was just gonna say too, for that nasty cook, you would hope that he was serving a purpose, right, to help the llama learn patience, but then hopefully he was rubbing off on the nasty cook too,
Yeah,
right?
I think so. I think definitely. But the thing is, what's really interesting, because we never, unless you're highly enlightened, you don't know somebody's mind. So you don't really know who they are. Like, it could be somebody really enlightened that's purposely manifesting this way for your benefit. So again, if I like to see everybody as my teacher, and the thing is, sometimes we lose track and we're ordinary beings and we're very busy and we have a lot going on. We bump up against each other, and but if you have this big spacious experience of your mind, you can learn from everybody. You can learn from everybody. I just had this minor little scene out here. I'm in this little cabin and I'm behind this school, but I'm behind this kind of, part of the school's a residence, and there's a new couple that moved in, and she's a teacher at the school. They're a lovely young couple, and they came with 2 vehicles, and one is a really large van, and it's just not fitting in the different parking spaces. And it's been going on for 2 to 3 weeks. And I park back here, and I don't really want to be involved in it because it's really more the school, but we're neighbors and I like them, and they just moved in. So what happened is the people from the school have asked him to move the van. And this was 2 weeks ago. And then I spoke to the woman of the partnership. It's a man and woman. I spoke to the woman who's the teacher, and I haven't seen him. So I said, well, by the way, is he going to move the van? And she's like, oh yeah, I'll tell him. That was a week ago. The van's still sitting here. Then today I saw her again, and she goes, how's everything going? And I said, well, we've asked you twice now to move the van. So we're kind of wondering what's going on. And right. So then he came to my door tonight before the teaching. And I was really glad that he could just, and he said to me, and he was a little charged, and he goes, "What's going on?" He was a young guy. He was like, so we had a little dialogue. It was nice. It wasn't anything, but I explained from my view, and just, I was glad we could just directly talk. And I just said to him, "What's going to help you move the van?" And what, and I was really thinking, like, maybe I can learn from him what he's doing. I learned about what he does, what his day's like, so that I know more now about the story behind of why he hasn't moved it yet. I asked him, what does he need? Does he need help in what he's going to do to prepare the place for where he's moving it to? And how, and so again, you can learn from anybody. And when you do, it kind of opens you up where there's like more gentleness rather than like, just, can you just move your van? I don't need to know anything about it. Move it. Yeah, we're interrelated here. We're interrelated. Then I ended up giving him 2 organic apples. Now I found out that he really likes apples. Like, we're all happy here. So, and then of course we will see when the van actually gets moved, but, but then we'll go to plan B. But I'm not that tweaked, but, I'm like, I like these people, and it's like that. Everybody has their thing of what they're dealing with, moving in, moving out, moving's a lot like that. So we had a nice little interaction. Yeah. So you never know who that person is that is, and you'd like to think certainly with an enlightened being, the influence they can have on them is definitely happening there. Absolutely. Okay, let's look at, then, and let me go, I want to go into, so here's another, just to go on a little bit more with this, is very much remember this verse, and look at sometimes the disrespect we've had of other people that have been generous to us, right? If somebody's not appreciating what you've done, have you ever done that in your life? I, for one, just think about my parents. I just think about my parents, for one. Think about what parents do for kids. And not all of our parents are perfect. I know that, right? Our parents, they all went to the great Harvard of parenting schools, didn't they? I can't believe that with parenting, there's no school for parenting. There's no real school. The school is how your parents did it and how their parents did it. And we all know how that went, right? But I recently was talking to a friend in Florida during this recent trip to Florida, and she's actually going to a conscious parenting class. She's got 2 teenagers, and it's about mindful, conscious parenting. And I said, good for you. Like, there are classes like that you can choose to sign up to really get a better sense of how to do it, because it's very challenging with kids these days, like that. So think about, did you ever throw somebody's generosity back in their face that you weren't yourself all that appreciative? And think about all the stuff, with our parents that we really didn't necessarily appreciate. So there's the karma, the view. Concentrate on your karma to prevent you from thinking about the other person's mistakes. Like, this is simply me looking at that mirror, having the karma come back to me, which is the way karma works. Okay. You can also consider their karma, what imprints they are making that will cause them to suffer more and more. Okay. So in a sense, on the planet, the more you can care for somebody else's karma, meaning the causes that they're creating, okay, it helps me rather than just seeing their mistakes. Think about what they're creating for themselves. So again, going back to, if I accept the defeat, verse 5, and know what's coming from them is completely deserved, okay, I can then, verse 6, develop more patience. And in an earlier verse, develop more humility. Okay. So again, what I'm going to work to practice is to ease their mind, to help quell any disturbance like that over and over. And this is very adverse to the way the world's working. And that's why it's so hard. Everybody else has a different idea of like, well, they harmed you, you should get them back. They didn't thank you, then you never help them again. As if we're devoid of creating any of that for ourselves. That as if I've never done that. I've always been a paragon of, Doesn't work that way. Okay, verse 7. Verse 7. In short, both directly and indirectly, do I offer every benefit and happiness to all my mothers. May I secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. This is talking about Tonglen practice, giving and taking. This is one of the main bodhisattva practices to develop compassion and love. We did an earlier meditation, which is one of the meditations for this course, Tonglen. There's different ways of doing it. Lama Zopa Rinpoche has that meditation component that you have as the materials for this course. And you can think about different realms of existence. I had even said, start with a visualization of yourself in front of you. We always leave ourselves out. You're having a hard day, just do Tonglen with yourself. Visualizing as you inhale, taking the suffering from the front visualization of yourself. Okay? You're not harming yourself, you seated here taking, okay? But imagine a constricted knot of your self-cherishing at your core, like at your heart center, okay? And as I take, I'm using it to diminish and purify and erase that self-cherishing in myself. And that creates a sense of greater spaciousness, loving kindness, right? And then I want to give that to the front visualization of myself. And again, in any images that represent that to you. And then you can expand and start. You can do it with a difficult person or anyone you choose at any given time, like that. Best to do it more in a formal meditation setting. Very helpful to develop that habit so that maybe that's all you can do in this life spiritually when you're dying. And let's say you have cancer, something like that, old age, some sort of suffering in the body with a lot of pain. Because you're experiencing it, there might not be a lot they can do about it other than some pain meds. But why not have the attitude? Because I have to experience this anyway. This is the disease I have, right? So all the other beings on the planet with this illness or any kind of suffering, let me take it on in my disease, in my illness, in my suffering, okay? Let it diminish my self-cherishing and let me give all the blissful, wonderful things of this life that I've had to all these other beings and let them be free and ultimately happy. If you die with a mind in that space, I think you're in pretty good shape. So there is no bodhicitta attitude without great loving kindness and compassion. There's no entry, what they'd say, to the Mahayana path without there first being love and compassion. Okay, develop to a level where it is pure, meaning it's free of attachment and it's directed to all beings without any being left out. So once again, there's no entry. Mahayana path, greater vehicles, Mahayana, greater vehicle. I like universal vehicle. Means that this is for me to get enlightened to benefit all living beings. If you hear Lama Zopa Rinpoche talk, if you listen to his videos, if you've been at teachings, he has a big emphasis on the word all. And you'll really hear Rinpoche said, all living beings, for all living beings, okay? So what happens is we're really happy to help our friends and people we like. And I even might have set a motivation in the morning. I may have reestablished the motivation through the day that can I get enlightened to benefit all living beings? And then throughout the day, here comes the jerk at work. So I want to benefit all living beings except that person. That's how I feel. That's how the mind is, let's say. Okay. But this is about, again, to enter the Mahayana path, which is a source of incredible happiness for you. Okay. You can't do it without there first being love and compassion developed again to the level where it's pure. And that means without attachment, directed to all beings without anybody left out. So sometimes, we have this love and compassion is, I'm going to do something kind for you and all that, but because I kind of want you to do something for me. I want somebody to think I'm a good person because I did that. I want somebody to see that I'm really giving this way. That's not pure. That's not pure. So you can see that teachings are challenging us exhorting us to work in very opposite ways than we're accustomed to, very opposite ways that the planet is moving. Okay. And that can cause a lot of fear and confusion for us, and fear and confusion in those around us who are close to us. You know, people with Tonglen, I don't discuss it openly with people that aren't Buddhists or don't understand. Because they go, why do you want to take on some? Why do you want to have the thought to take on suffering? That's horrible. Why would you want to do that? I'm not really taking on the suffering at my level. I can't do that. It's just an attitude. Okay. So again, that fear and confusion is not really justified, because the effort we make in the spiritual path, okay, is super beneficial to our happiness and long-term success. Okay. It's benefiting other people. So this takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to do these practices. So a lot of times on this path, I talk about bodhisattva warriors. Are you a bodhisattva warrior? We're not going to war with other people. We're going to war with our delusions. And there are times I feel like I am slowly moving up the mountain. And sometimes I'm kind of like, why are there so many more people coming down? You know, but occasionally you look across and you see through the crowd, there's somebody else slowly moving up the mountain, you know, and you kind of give them a wink or a wave to them. But sometimes it's like that. So it takes enormous courage to go against the current. And that's why we're here. And that's why centers are so important. That's why our communities like this, even the people in this Zoom class right now, there's other people like this that we're trying. We are united. We are joined like that at the heart. We try our best. Okay. So here it says, in short, okay, it's just pointing out like briefly, here's the synopsis, here's the conclusion. Okay. Directly and indirectly, I will offer every benefit and happiness to all my mothers. Okay, so directly is like, in this life, I've got to do it. Indirectly refers to future lives. Okay? And then every benefit and happiness, every benefit. When we talk about wanting beings to have happiness, okay, it's every benefit. It means wanting them to have happiness, wanting them to have the causes of happiness. Okay, and of those two, the more important one is to have the causes of happiness rather than just happiness now, because that's a result of happiness. That's a result of those causes, if I'm experiencing the result. But if you have the causes of happiness, you can continue to create more happiness and freedom, okay, rather than just experience a momentary temporal happiness right now. And then you use up some merit in experiencing that happiness. So it soon passes away. So every benefit and happiness, think about the causes of happiness for yourself that you're creating every day in your life. What kind of causes am I creating? Or am I just using up some happiness? Something to think about. And then all my mothers, it says, this is all living beings. And when we go into the 7-point cause and effect method to develop bodhicitta, I've mentioned before, the first step after equanimity is all beings have been my mother. And this is due to the notion of the beginningless nature of mind in Tibetan Buddhism. The mind has no beginning or end, and it's made up of moments of consciousness, one creating the next moment, one moment of consciousness or mind creating the next moment, so that this particular moment is the cause of the next moment. And it's preceded by a moment before that caused it. And that's preceded by a moment before that caused it. So you can go back and back and back, and you're not going to find a first moment. Because Tibetan Buddhism says there's a moment before that that caused it. There's a cause and effect relationship, always. That law of karma. Things don't just happen randomly. So that's when we would say in our world system, that's a miracle. It's not a miracle. There's simply, if you create the cause, and anything is possible. Anything is possible if the cause is there. So think about what causes you're really creating in life, like that. Think about what your habits are. It's very interesting, okay? So to give to all my mother sentient beings, again, the giving required here is giving without expecting any result, okay? I'm not expecting the appreciation. When we do things for ourselves, We don't expect any thanks or any type of appreciation. So, like that, here's an attitude of including others in our heartfelt cherishing, okay, is cherishing them without any expectation. It's the way parents feel about kids, about their kids. When you do things for your children, you don't expect anything back. Okay? You're just happy that they're happy. So here, we're happy for ourselves to be happy. It's enough to make ourselves happy that we do things for ourselves. So it's the same with all of our mothers, all these other people, this attitude of giving, like that. And it also says, I shall secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. Okay. So again, this isn't the thing you talk about with everybody that doesn't understand Dharma. People won't get it. Why do you want somebody suffering? Okay. It's only really explained to those who want to understand. It's not something I talk about publicly. This was not a public teaching from Master Atisha, which is part of the equalizing and exchanging self with others method to develop bodhicitta. This was the secret method. Okay. So the practice is something we do in order to develop bodhicitta. So if we're totally focused on worldly happiness, okay, then Tonglen doesn't really make sense. But if you're thinking about the bigger causes, okay, that's what we want to go for. That's why I'd want to have an attitude to just take their suffering on like that. And that suffering can be purification, but the main thing is let it reduce my self-cherishing, because that gets in the way of my happiness. Bodhisattvas appear quite relaxed and happy. They're definitely not publishing how great they are. They're not publishing how much they're doing for other people. They do their practice in secret. They do their practice without pride, with humility. Bodhisattvas have destroyed their self-cherishing attitude. And bodhicitta is the antidote to self-cherishing. And that's exactly what the giving and taking, the Tonglen practice, is trying to do, to destroy your self-cherishing, which draws you closer to an attainment of bodhicitta. So therefore, the giving that we need is without an attitude of self-benefit, just cherishing others the way we cherish ourselves. Okay, and we're training to broaden our cherishing, not to destroy our care for ourselves. Okay, so you do need to take care of yourself in this process. We're making the care for each another being equal to the care we have for ourselves. So there's no need for our care of others to be repaid in some way. So because we're talking now about Tonglen, I'm going to save the other meditation for next week. Okay. I'd like to do a little bit more Tonglen meditation right now. But first, I just want to ask if there's any questions. Everybody okay? Great. So please sit comfortably. Lightly close your eyes. And just settle the mind on the breath for a moment. So again, there are variations on Tonglen meditation. This is again a variation from Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And again, this is a very brave practice. So in a sense, exchanging self for others, because Tonglen comes in that method. It's a brave practice. It's far more important, Rinpoche says, than visualizing light coming from healing deities, things like that. By just having an attitude to take the suffering of others upon yourself and give them your happiness. Super powerful healing meditation. So just reflect, please. First, we're going to look at taking the suffering. I'd like you to just reflect on how living beings are constantly experiencing suffering, even though they want nothing to do with suffering. Okay? But because of fundamental ignorance, because of confusion, because we misunderstand reality, because we're lazy, because we get attached to people and things, we get averted to other people and things, and all these other imbalances of the mind. Think about all the different ways people suffer. And as much as you can open your heart to their suffering, we're just focusing in general on people. You don't have to focus on a specific person. Just think in the world and think how wonderful it would be if they could be free of all this suffering. Can you reach further into your heart and think, I myself will free them from all the suffering and its causes? Think how much you really want to do that. I myself will free them from all their suffering and its causes. And this is not like I'm a Messiah or any great savior. It's just this really strong wish in your heart. And imagine as you breathe in, imagine you're lifting all that suffering from them in whatever image comes into you like that. And if you want to think of a particular person, particular group of people, and whether it's people with cancer, think of all the people with cancer on the planet. Maybe we think of all the Ukrainians or anybody in a war-torn country. Well, I just want to think about them. And I inhale and I take all that conflict that they're experiencing, all the fear they're experiencing as I inhale. Okay? Like I'm plucking a thorn out of their flesh. Okay? You immediately free them from the suffering. It doesn't harm you. Just imagine that constricted knot of your self-cherishing, that self-cherishing thought at your heart, and it goes right there and destroys it. This self-cherishing that's the creator of all of your problems becomes non-existent. Like you're aiming a missile right on the target. Aim it at that self-cherishing thought. That's the target in this meditation. Try your best. Just focus on the taking. Self-cherishing is based on the ignorance or confusion that holds to the concept of a truly existent I, myself, truly existent self. And even though no truly existent I exists, I'm saying truly existent, not your conventional I that's doing this meditation, that's sitting in your space that needs to be taken care of. I'm talking about an inherently existent I, unchanging, independent, existing for all time. We cherish this false notion of our I and regard it as the most precious and the most important among all beings. And that's the source of all of our suffering. So as this self-cherishing becomes non-existent, the false I, that ignorance, the false I that our confusion holds to be truly existent, also becomes non-existent. It becomes absent, completely empty. If you can come to that absence as best as you can, focus your mind there. The absence, the emptiness, which is the ultimate nature of the I. And just think of that inherently existent I. The concept of the truly existent, unchanging, concretely existent I. It doesn't exist. Just think for a moment about that I. There's no I there at all. That type of I doesn't exist at all. So imagine these beings we think about, whoever they were, release from their suffering. And at least you're self-cherishing to some degree, some imprints, clearly reducing that. And in conclusion, may we dedicate whatever positive energy we've created from our evening and from doing this practice, helping us continue to reduce our self-cherishing more and more, to create more causes of happiness, more reduction of suffering for ourselves that helps us move along this path to enlightenment so we can benefit all living beings. Please relax. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. Can you possibly this week continue the Tonglen meditation? Whichever variation you like, whatever seems to be speaking to you more. It's a very, very powerful meditation. Explore verses 6 and 7 that we talked about tonight. And can you see everything as a product? Can you start poking at your reality, especially when you're unhappy? So 2 exercises when you're unhappy. The quicker you can catch it. Number 1 is what's the focus of my mind right now? What's going on? Am I thinking about myself? Am I thinking about others? What happened? What suddenly happened? And the second thing is, how am I holding myself? How concretely am I holding this notion of myself? What's interfering with that? What has disturbed that? So have a little look at that. And can I see, in general, everything as a product, everything is a component of something else, including the I, the notion of myself, is based on causes and conditions. My parents wanted to have another child, for instance, is a cause and condition of myself. I depend on my parts. The parts of myself are my body and mind. And according to the highest school, the most subtle understanding of how I exist is my mind labeling, merely labeling Amy, for instance, in my case, or labeling female, or labeling nun, or labeling American, okay, on a configuration, on a valid basis of designation that can be labeled that. You know, this is not Amy, this is Pen. You understand? So this is a valid basis of designation. My mind understands this in a certain thing, and then I merely label on that, mentally label on that, labeled by the mind. And then I come into existence. Do I see myself like that, or do I see myself as concretely existing Amy for all time? So anything that interferes with that, that's going to be upsetting to me. Why be upset if I can see it as dependent on these other components? You can look at everything like that. Any last questions? Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Chen Ling, for hosting. I so hope to see you next week. I also wanted to let you know this weekend, I am teaching via Zoom or those of you local can come to Land of Medicine Buddha and sit in our meditation hall. So it's on my website. It should be on Land of Medicine Buddha's website. There's a link to register for the course in France. I can give you the link for free. They let me give it for free as well. So it's in French and English. And so if you want to join Saturday and Sunday, but it starts California time, 8 a.m., it's 8 to 9:30. And it's 11 to 12:30, 2 sessions Saturday and Sunday on self-compassion. You can join for any part that you like. So we're going to look at some things like that. And there's some other programs coming up, including May 15th, Sunday, is our practice 3 hours for this module. So it's going to be broken up into segments, but it's going to be 10 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and we'll do deeper just meditations with a little bit of discussion of the meditations we've been doing for this module. Sunday, May 15th, you can join. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Lovely to
Venerable
see
Amy.
all of you.
And I just wanted to mention now that we're finishing, we have our last evening class next week, 1 week from tonight. And like you said, our practice day is the 15th. It's going to be the same Zoom link as you're using for the weekly class. And if anyone is interested in getting a completion card or doing this class, as we call it, for certification through the FPMT, then we can use the practice day for what they call your public exam, where, and Venerable Amy, you can speak more to that. It might be leading a meditation, for example, or discussing one of the topics that we've covered in class. There's an alternate where you can do a written exam, but most people don't volunteer for that option.
It is helpful. It's really about the certification is if there's 14 modules in Discovering Buddhism. If you get a certificate in each one, you can become a Discovering Buddhism teacher. But the real point is you have to learn a lot more than the students. So it's really better for your path to really fulfill, to really understand these topics. And so it helps you. The meditations help as well. The readings help. And what I might do is for those that do want the certificate, Gina will let me know. I'll probably have a little separate hour session with you so we can go over some of the questions and you kind of present back as if you're teaching, because it deepens your knowledge. And that's really the point. So not only the byproduct is you can teach it, but it really will deepen your knowledge. So that would be great. So it's something you can think about and you can let Gina know like that. But it'd be great if you just want to come and sit. It's open to anybody that day as well. It's not just for people doing the module. So if you want to have friends or mention it to other people, if they're interested to do a little bit more of these meditations, be really helpful like that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lovely to see all of you. And we can just read these dedication prayers. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow. May that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. For the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. For Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. I was just thinking, I was reminiscing with Anila yesterday. It was so cute. We were talking about reminiscing. In 2006, I did a pilgrimage clear across India with Anila and 4 of her family members. So there were 6 of us. And it was a very funny whole start. And she wanted to go to Dharamsala, India. She's never been. And she had cousins who came down from the mountains. And then her sister-in-law and her sister-in-law's 90-year-old father, who was a monk. So there was a real entourage, the 6 of us. It was really quite funny. but Anila wanted to ask Rinpoche's permission to go on this pilgrimage and certain things. And there were certain things she wanted to see, like the Golden Temple, because it's supposed to be a holy Guru Rinpoche place, even though it's a Sikh, an amazing Sikh place. It's incredible, the Golden Temple in Amritsar. So somehow we're talking, and Lama Zopa Rinpoche is very traditional, quite traditional with Buddhist places, and there's no point in wasting time and, you know, things like that. It's just delicious like that. So what happens is Anila, Rinpoche is staying in Varanasi, India, which is a massive Indian city, totally manic place. We're in the little village outside called Sarnath. Sarnath is where the Buddha gave his first teaching. And Sarnath's a really mellow village, but the reason we're all there is the Dalai Lama's teaching. So one day after the teachings, people go around to see different lamas, different teachers, but mainly I get Anila that I'm staying with, and she says, we're going to get a little taxi into town. We're going to go to Rinpoche's hotel, and and she wants to ask permission. But the problem is she gets very, very motion sickness. So just getting her into the taxi, 20-minute drive away, and it was a whole ordeal, and tried to not have her, you know, throw up. And we get to the hotel, and she's really this like very cherished kind of mountain being. Like, she doesn't do well in cities. She doesn't have any of that level of sophistication, but you put her at Laudo with the cows and the potatoes and everything, and she's the queen, and she knows exactly how to survive. So I get her into the hotel, but she manifests being very, very shy around her brother. So, and thank you. Gina's posting, if you look in the chat and you open that link, there's a link Gina just posted. You see Rinpoche, if you can open that picture, talking to Anila on the little screen. She's got a hat on because it's cold at Laudo. And she's there. You can see the bottom of the picture has her hands up and a little fist, and Rinpoche's talking. So it's a very cute photo of the two of them. So anyway, what happens is we go into the thing, and she's the one who wants to go to Amritsar. I've already been to Amritsar. I didn't need to go. And but because this Guru Rinpoche thing, and Amritsar was a little out of our way, but I'm going to take wherever she wants to go. I'm going to take her, you know. And so we sit, but she wants to kind of ask permission, this whole thing. And it was kind of an awkward thing. And we're at the seated on the floor in front of Rinpoche's bed, and Rinpoche's on the bed, and we're both kind of sitting like this. Like, it was just these two little munchkins in some way, the two of us. It was so cute. You know, I just totally adore her. And she's one of my favorite beings on the planet, one of the great loves of my life. So she's sitting there, and then I never saw her really with Rinpoche this much. So she's totally shy and she won't speak, because I'm thinking she's going to talk, and they can talk in Tibetan, and I'm just going to sit there. And you know, I basically just brought her, let her ask permission. But so she's kind of looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and Rinpoche turns in English and says, you know, so like talk to me, you know. So I explained, I said, well, we're going to go on pilgrimage, and Anila wants, you know, check. And I'm looking at her like, will you please say something? You know, and she's not. And so Rinpoche says, where do you want to go? So I explained Dharamsala, okay, was many pilgrimage sites, other places around there. I explained where we're going to go, Sarnath, all this other stuff, whatever we're going to see. Rinpoche says, and then I said, and then the Golden Temple in Amritsar. So, and I'm kind of like nudging Anila, and I'm like, will you please speak up? Will you say something? This is not my idea. And then Rinpoche says, Golden Temple, what's there? What is there? So then they're just spoofing on me. The two of them totally have it all over me. It's all, you talk about your, you know, giving you thing. I was just thinking, Anila and I were just laughing yesterday about it. So then I said, the Golden Temple, Rinpoche, and he says, what is that? So I said, it's a holy Sikh place. Very beautiful, holy Sikh temple. And he says, well, you know, what is there? And then he says, is there any benefit to go there? Because if it's not a Buddhist kind of holy shrine. And so I'm looking at Anila like, will you say something? You know, about, like, it was just a funny, anyway, we're both laughing. And then Rinpoche was just, I mean, I think they were just spoofing on me, and it was very cute. So anyway, we did go to Amritsar. We did see the Golden Temple and whatever benefit. And I took her over that area. There was a lot of car sickness on that journey. Anila was reminding me yesterday. She said, me all the time, so much trouble for you, you know, but we had a wonderful, wonderful trip, all 6 of us. And they're a wonderful group to travel with. And sometimes when I'm on pilgrimage, leading people on pilgrimage, which are mostly Westerners, I do mention to them this pilgrimage I've done with 5 other Sherpas across India, which was quite a journey. India is, as you know, a really big country. And I mentioned, and one of the benefits of traveling with people like that, they never complain. And that kind of shuts down, because Westerners, you know, so it really stops that level for people right in the beginning, because it can tire everybody out when somebody's really, really complaining. So I do work on pilgrimage to make sure everybody's okay and in a level of comfort, but you know, pilgrimage isn't about being in your comfort zone. Right, Gina?
That's correct. It's can be very challenging for your body and for your mind, but really such a great experience because of the challenges, quite honestly.
Yeah, it is. And I think those challenges, again, are about polishing the jewel of your mind. Like it does really work. And when you are going to holy places and doing practices there, the holy places are designed actually for you to do special practices. So rather than just taking a photo because Guru Rinpoche's handprint was there or something, it's much better to sit down and do some meditation, or to offer some water bowls or a tea light, or make an offering to the nunnery out of this act of generosity. And that has more of a transformative effect for you. So yeah, so it's been really great, these pilgrimages. I really enjoyed. So thank you so much. Sorry to go on for so long, but I was just thinking yesterday of, it was so fun the other day talking to Anila and reminiscing. And yeah, I mean, one of the jokes we had, so, you know, with car sickness, many people get car sickness, motion sickness, and some of the roads in India, you know, you're winding, but the main thing is the less you have in your stomach, the less sick you get. It's just common sense. Any of you know that. So what I would do is, I knew when we were going to get in the car, we were going to leave in about an hour, and I would just stop Anila from eating or drinking anything heavy. And I just monitor and be around her and be like, no, Anila, you know, when we get there, we're going to eat, but not now. And she was kind of understanding what was happening. And so then she was with some cousins in Dharamsala, and I went off to say goodbye to some friends because I used to live there. And I come back, and we're leaving in like 20 minutes. And she's just had like 2 big bowls of butter tea, Tibetan butter tea, which is heavy butter, salt. It's like a big soup of milk. And I see her finishing the second one that somebody said and I like, she's sitting there, and I said, what are you doing? What you know? And she says, me, you know, and she's so innocent sometimes. And she says, me no knowing, like giving, then me no knowing, drinking, nothing. So, you know, 3 hours down to the train station with the plastic bag in front of her. That's how we went. So it was amazing. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Thank you, Venerable Amy, and thank you everyone for being here.
And thank you. Gina's just posted this is an article about her life, the keeper of Laudo. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the beautiful picture of her that went along with that story in Mandala magazine. It's a beautiful picture of her some years ago, and a story written by Mary Colony, a dear friend of mine who spent a lot of time up there. So thank you so much.
Good night, Amy.
Good night. Enjoy.